This is what happened to every villain in Family Guy, starting off with Stewie's evil girlfriend Penelope, who we are first introduced to in the season 10 episode Mr. and Mrs. Stewie.
I knew you were too weak to do this. You're nothing but a coward.
No, Penelope, wait!
You see, despite having a rather polite introduction, Stewie then learns that Penelope is just as twisted as he is. As after playing dolls and exploring mathematical equations, Penelope then reveals her secret weapons room, which honestly is incredibly similar to Stewie's.
But what are these formulas for?
For these.
However, it's at this point that things take a much darker turn, as unlike Stewie, Penelope has actually carried out all of her evil plans, with this stark contrast only being furthered by the fact that Penelope has actually killed her own mother, something which Stewie has now been unable to do for 23 seasons.
Wait a moment. Did you kill her?
Well, I held the knife. And her hair.
Oh my God!
And so, once Stewie falls madly in love with Penelope, she then uses this to get Stewie to commit some truly horrible acts, including blowing up Mort Goldman, before then moving on to even bigger targets such as the Great Wall of China, the Eiffel Tower, and even the entire country of India.
Dear Pakistan, up yours. Love, India. Let's see what happens.
They did not need much.
And once Brian realizes that Stewie and Penelope are the ones behind these attacks, he then warns Stewie that he's being manipulated and things can only end badly with Penelope. Which, I mean, yeah, I'm sure India agrees.
But this girl, she just creates chaos for the sake of chaos.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying she's a bad influence on you and you should stop spending time with her.
I shall do no such thing!
And boy, rather foolishly, Stewie then passes on what Brian said to Penelope, who of course isn't too best pleased, as she then instructs Stewie to kill Brian so that they can be together forever.
Stuart, do you love me?
More than anything!
Then swear on that love that you'll do what I ask.
Just name it.
Kill him. Kill Brian for me.
However, when Stewie inevitably bottles the nerve to do this, well, Penelope decides to just kill Brian herself, which then forces Brian to try and fight her off, which he does incredibly unsuccessfully.
Stewie, she's 1 year old. I think I can handle this myself. All right, Stewie, tag in.
Although, thankfully for Brian, Stewie is then able to right all of his previous wrongs by pinning Penelope down, taking off his rose-tinted glasses, and once and for all, kicking her out of his life.
Stay away from my dog.
Very well, Stewie, I shall. But just one thing.
What?
And so, because Penelope was able to escape, perhaps one day we will see her return. However, for now at least, Penelope will remain a lost Family Guy villain. And so, swiftly moving on, our next Family Guy villain is James Woods.
Ooh, a piece of candy. Ooh, a piece of candy.
With James Woods making his first appearance in Season 4's Peter's Got Woods, in order to attend James Woods High School, changing its name to Martin Luther King.
Let me just say, I'm all in favor of renaming the school after Dr. King.
What? Wow, a big star and yet so humble. James Woods High School, it remains.
And honestly, all throughout this opening sequence, James Woods seems like far more of a hero than a villain, as rather than flying back to LA, he instead forms an incredibly wholesome bond with Peter, with this bond being captured by a fantastic montage, which ends in a hilarious way with James Woods taking Brian's position at the end of the bed.
I kind of miss sleeping at the foot of your bed.
I don't think so.
Oh, come on. Can't we just go back?
I tried to tell you.
This is my spot now, Brian.
Oh, I see.
However, this wholesome friendship then quickly sours, as after Peter goes out to get a drink with Brian, they then come home to an enraged James Woods, who in a fit of jealousy then lashes out at both Peter and Brian.
Where does James Woods fit into the fun, you fucker?
Look, James, you're acting kind of weird.
I'll act however I want to act, you son of a bitch!
And so, with their backs against the wall, Peter then comes up with the ingenious scheme of placing little pieces of candy all across the house, which in a brilliant twist then lead to a trap box, and eventually a container ship which takes him away.
By the way, what'd you end up doing with James Woods?
Don't worry, Brian. He's being examined by top men.
Who?
Top men.
Although, boy, this is far from the last we'd see of James Woods, as he then makes a far more devious return in Season 6, which he does by stealing Peter's wallet and then confronting him at a Chinese restaurant.
Mr. Woods, just give Peter back his wallet.
Oh no, Brian. I'm just getting started. Peter, you humiliated me. You put me through hell. And now you're gonna pay for it.
However, this is only the beginning of his plot, as James Woods then completely steals Peter's identity and even forces him out of his own home, with this, in my opinion, being one of the funniest and most outlandish scenes in Family Guy history.
Not so fast, pal. Those are my clothes.
Oh, come on.
You heard him, fella. Take him off. Right down to the poop sack. What? You don't all wear a poop sack?
And once James Woods takes over Peter's life, well, then things become a lot more brutal, as he then ties Brian up in the backyard, plasters his face all over the wedding photos, and quite possibly the worst of all, introduces Meg to the art of throwing up in order to lose weight.
Now close your eyes, Meg, and let Mr. Pukey help you out. Whoa! When did Reese Witherspoon get here?
However, just like in the first James Woods episode, Peter finds a way to completely destroy him, this time by simply stealing James Woods' identity and going on the David Letterman show in order to reveal his new, rather controversial film.
Well, Dave, I have a hilarious new movie coming out on HBO next month. It's all about 9/11. The movie's called September 11th, 2000 Fun.
And boy, does this work wonders, as James Woods' house in LA then gets immediately torched, which then causes him to want to fight Peter. But I mean, hey, it's James Woods, so of course he falls for the candy trick yet again.
Ooh, a piece of candy.
Okay, Brian, next time let's remember this right away because he's done this twice.
And after this, we then see James Woods on a number of occasions, such as in Season 8 when he ruins Brian's television show, or in Season 9 when he gets killed by Diane Simmons, and then of course in Season 10 when he gets brought back to life, and then just immediately goes back to torturing Peter, with James Woods then completely ruining Peter's dream of becoming a Hollywood agent.
But you're my only client. Without you, I'm ruined.
Well, that's show business. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to answer this fake phone call.
However, beyond this point, we would only get to see James Woods twice more, in The Simpsons Guy and Inside Family Guy, with his relationship with the show ending after season 15. And so, why is this? Well, James Woods is an incredibly opinionated and conservative man, whereas Seth MacFarlane and most of the Family Guy writing staff are much more liberal, with the feud between James Woods and Family Guy starting after he didn't like one of their scripts. And then in 2019, the final nail in the coffin was struck when Family Guy directly called out James Woods in the episode Adam West High.
We should rename the high school for Mayor West.
Wait, you mean change it from James Woods High?
Yeah. James Woods is an embarrassment to Quahog. He's a political troll and a maniac on Twitter.
And so, this unfortunately means that we will never get to see James Woods in Family Guy again. And from an enemy of Peter's, we now move on to the arch nemesis of Stewie. And I am of course talking about Bertram.
Victory shall be mine!
You You see, in Season 3's Mission Impossible, we find out that Peter and Lois are actually planning to have another child, something which Stewie, let's just say, isn't too best pleased about.
You're gonna have a baby brother, buddy.
Or sister.
Oh, a new baby. That's wonderful. Call me when Kojak starts.
What?
And after a brief chat with Rupert, Stewie decides that he has to go on the all-out offensive if he wants to stop his little sibling from being born, which Stewie initially does in a rather genius way, by interrupting Peter and Lois' snuggle time and acting the part of a baby.
Where? Where? Mommy, Daddy, I had a bad dream. I saw the book. Plus, what the devil is that name again? Boogeyman. Yes, that's it. I saw the Boogeyman.
However, this only works momentarily, which then forces Stewie to take far more drastic measure, as he enters his secret base, shrinks himself down to microscopic level, and then enters Peter's body with the intent of killing all of his sperm.
As was your fate, Mr. Fly, so is the fate of every sperm in Peter's body.
As Stewie's able to wipe out practically all of Peter's potential children in a rather hilarious Star Wars fashion. Well, that is, every sperm apart from Bertram.
Well, it seems you're out of ammunition.
As are you, Stuart.
You know my name.
I know many things.
Indeed.
Quite.
Yes.
Although, as it turns out, Bertram is just like Stewie. So much so that when they're fighting, Stewie actually comes around to the idea of having Bertram as a little brother. And ultimately, Stewie decides to spare his life.
You know, perhaps I've been looking at this the wrong way. I dare say I should embrace the idea of having a little brother. After all, it's obvious we'd make quite a formidable team.
Although, boy, this would end up being a horrible mistake. As in Season 4's sibling rivalry, Stewie decides that he wants to lord it up as the undisputed king of the jungle gym.
Hey, where'd you get the Pete Rose haircut?
Anyone else want to feel my Weebok in their grapes?
However, while Stewie was fighting for playground dominance, Peter has, shall we say, a mishap at the sperm bank, which then leads to him having to refill all of the vials with his own supply, and ultimately leads to the birth of Bertram.
What the hell is so bloody fascinating? You!
Well, well, well. If it isn't my half-brother, Stewie.
And from this point, things only get more heated, as Stewie and Bertram once more engage in an all-out war. However, this time for the king of the jungle gym, with this war beginning with an aerial assault and countless child casualties. And then, if this wasn't bad enough, Bertram then infects Stewie with chickenpox.
What is this, makeup? Why are you wearing makeup? Chickenpox!
And so, after Bertram plays dirty, nothing is now off limits, as Stewie then pulls off a Vietnam-esque sabotage, and once more has Bertram at the whim of his mercy, although this time he'll surely kill him. Right?
Any last words? You wouldn't kill me, would you? All right, go ahead and drop it in. Oh boy, that's gonna be beautiful when it reaches adulthood.
Well, no. No, he doesn't. And boy, Stewie just never learns his lesson. As in Season 9's The Big Bang Theory, Bertram would return one last time. This time with the intent to kill Stewie once and for all.
So, Stewie Griffin invented a time machine.
You see, once Bertram realizes that Stewie has a time machine, he then uses it to go back in time and kill one of Stewie's greatest ancestors, which in a rather funny twist is Leonardo da Vinci, as killing him will then wipe out Stewie's existence entirely.
What are you talking about?
I am gonna kill one of your ancestors, effectively erasing you from history!
However, what Bertram doesn't realize is that Stewie is actually the creator of the universe, and that by killing Stewie's ancestor, he's effectively wiping out the universe from ever having existed. Although, of course, Stewie isn't going to let this happen without a fight, as he then travels back to Renaissance Italy and stops Bertram from killing Da Vinci, before once and for all putting an end to Bertram's reign of terror for good.
Hey Bertram, what's your favorite kind of bottled water? Huh? Mine's Arrowhead.
And so, given the fact that we haven't seen Bertram since season 9, it's safe to assume that Bertram is truly gone forever. You see, unlike other Family Guy villains, Ernie is a true OG of the series, making his very first appearance in season 2's Da Boom, where after he gives Peter an expired coupon, well, then all hell breaks loose.
Oh, yeah, and that nice chicken outside gave me this coupon.
I'm sorry, this is expired.
You son of a...
And from this point, Ernie the Giant Chicken would become a staple of Family Guy, with Ernie now having appeared in 26 episodes, and dividing a lot of fans' opinions on how funny or necessary the chicken fights even are. However, I for the most part think that they're brilliantly done, and the reason for this is the ups and downs that Peter and Bernie go through in their rivalry, which can best be seen in season 5's No Chris Left Behind, as after going through the motions of their usual fighting sequence, both Peter and Ernie take a moment to think about why they're fighting in the first place.
Wait, hey, hang on. What are we fighting about?
You know, I have completely forgotten.
Me too.
Something about a coupon.
I cannot for the life of me remember.
And so, after realizing just how ridiculous they'd both been acting, Ernie then tries to make it up to Peter by inviting him out to dinner, where honestly, things seem to be going great.
That halibut was, that may have been the best halibut I've ever had.
Well, I'm glad we talked you out of the pork chops, huh?
Yes, thank you.
However, this would all quickly come undone once the bill arrives and they both refuse to let the other person pay for the dinner, which, of course, in true Family Guy style, leads to another chicken fight.
Let go of the check.
Ernie, if he wants to...
Stay out of this!
Don't you talk to my wife like that.
Oh, yeah? What are you gonna do about it?
And after countless battles, Ernie is still going strong in Family Guy. As in this season's episode, The Chicken or the Meg, we see that Bernie actually has a son called Nugget, who then falls madly in love with Meg. Although, boy, Peter sure doesn't seem too happy about this.
You either break up with him or you break up with me. You can't date us both.
Dad, you and I aren't dating.
Oh, so you've made your choice then.
And despite Meg initially being thrilled to run away with Nugget and live with his family, well, this all quickly sours once she realizes that Ernie is no different from her father.
No, I left because I love your son, not because I hate my dad.
Meg, either you hate your dad or you leave this house.
However, with Ernie being unable to hit a girl, well, Meg then simply just chops his head off and walks away. Although, unlike all the other chicken fights, it's far less certain if Ernie is actually still alive, or if this iconic Family Guy villain is gone forever. However, a Family Guy villain who has a much clearer ending is Diane Simmons. Although, honestly, for the first 8 seasons of the show, you'd never have guessed that she was a villain at all, as up until this point, Diane was mostly known for having an incredibly toxic and hilarious on-air relationship with Tom Tucker.
And since the laws of death no longer apply, I can do this.
That's right, Tom.
And honestly, whenever I would watch Family Guy growing up, I always had a bit of a crush on Diane Simmons, which I know is wild to say, but her brilliantly twisted humor always made scenes that she was in 10 times funnier.
Oh, wow, Diane Simmons!
You don't look anything like the ad. You better be huge.
And so, this made what came next even more shocking, as in season 9's And Then There Were Fewer, the entire town of Quahog gets invited to a mysterious mansion, for what they believe is a dinner in their honor.
That's weird. My invitation said it was in my honor. I assumed it was for being able to fart the alphabet, which I almost did till I pooped on the S. Ah, well. Everybody on the bus was upset long before that anyway.
However, this is no ordinary dinner, as shortly after the guests get comfortable, Quagmire's girlfriend gets shot. Which, I mean, of course, starts to ring a few alarm bells.
She's dead. She's been shot.
I can't help feeling this would be sadder if she wasn't heavy.
And boy, things only get far more chaotic from here, as one by one, people are starting to get picked off, including actual reoccurring characters in the show, such as Muriel Goldman and Jillian's boyfriend Derek. And despite everyone originally blaming Tom Tucker for all of these murders, the truth is eventually revealed when Diane Simmons slips up when talking to Lois.
Oh my god. Oh my god, it was you! You're the killer!
Very clever, Lois. You shouldn't have stopped to say hi to me. You would have lived longer.
God, why do I ever try to be friends with other women?
And at this point, you may be wondering, why would such a beloved character go out of her way to commit such horrid attacks? Well, you see, as soon as Diane Simmons turned 40, Tom Tucker then arranged for her to be replaced from the news, and James Woods dumped her for a younger model.
Apparently all men think the same way, because around the same time, James dumped me.
And so, in an act of brutal revenge, Diane planned to murder James Woods and blame Tom Tucker. Although, boy, Stephanie really messed up those plans, which then caused Diane to go on an even bigger killing spree just to cover her tracks.
I tried to plant the knife in Tom's suitcase, but at that moment, Muriel walked in and caught me in the act. It wasn't her fault, poor thing, but she had to die.
However, Diane Simmons isn't finished there, as after telling Lois all of this information, this of course means that she has to kill her too, which she attempts to do by dragging Lois to the edge of a cliff and then drawing out her gun.
Goodbye, Lois.
Although, just as Diane is about to pull the trigger, Stewie then snipes her from the rooftop before delivering what is quite possibly the funniest closing line in Family Guy history.
If anybody's gonna take that bitch down, it's gonna be me.
And so, this of course means that Diane Simmons will never be seen in Quahog again. However, our next Family Guy villain is much better at evading justice, with this being Lois's father, Carter Pewterschmidt.
Hi, Mr. Pewterschmidt.
Hello, Peter.
What's up?
Good? Oh, damn it. I mean, not much.
And boy, it truly would not be a Family Guy villain list without Carter. I mean, this man has pretty much done every evil deed under the sun. From playing Russian roulette with his grandkids, to being the Dark Lord of the Sith in the Star Wars universe, and even torturing orphaned kids with the promise of a loving family, only to then brutally strip this dream away.
Come on, you gotta want it. Oh, you gotta do better than that. Okay, I guess you don't want a new family, toys, and a puppy.
Although, none of this compares to the worst thing that Carter has ever done, which takes place in Season 11's The Old Man and the Big C. As after Brian walks in on Carter being given only 2 weeks to live, he then becomes incredibly suspicious when the very next day they go to visit him with the entire family, and well, he's absolutely fine.
Daddy?
Well, look who's here!
Daddy! You're okay!
Of course I'm okay. Why wouldn't I be?
And so, believing that this Carter is an imposter, Brian and Stewie then follow him around all day in order to try and catch him slipping up. Although, boy, this doesn't exactly go to plan, as Carter then just immediately acts like Carter.
Beanie? None of those people are real. I'm stealing all your sugar packets and napkins. Woodstock's over.
However, undeterred, Brian and Stewie continue their hunt, which leads them to Carter's medical facility where they learn the shocking truth.
Oh my God. Specimen Z isn't Carter's body. What is it? Specimen Z is a cure for cancer.
That's right, Carter is keeping the cure to the world's deadliest disease hidden, which he then explains to Brian and Stewie in quite possibly the most evil way imaginable.
Carter, you've discovered the holy grail of modern medicine. Why the hell would you keep it buried like this?
I'll tell you why. Because there's far more money to be made in treating a disease than in curing it.
Why cure someone of cancer in a day if we can treat them for a lifetime and bill them every step along the way?
And so, what happens to this evil man who's allowed millions of people to die needlessly? Well, because he's rich and successful, absolutely nothing. In fact, he's even then celebrated in Forbes magazine for all of his misdeeds.
Oh, Daddy.
I know, if he's such a bad guy, why is he on a magazine?
And so, it's safe to say that Carter is still thriving as a villain in Family Guy. However, a villain who has a much more twisted fate is Lois's long-lost brother, Patrick. And we are introduced to Patrick in Season 4's The Fat Guy Strangler, after Lois accidentally cracks open an old family photo and realizes that there's someone there that she's never seen before.
Huh, that's weird.
And so, after Carter denies all knowledge of his son, well then Lois decides to find him herself, which she does by cracking open Carter's safe and then tracking him down to an asylum.
Patrick?
Yes?
My name's Lois. I'm your sister.
Oh my God, Lois. I never thought I'd see you again.
And honestly, at first, Patrick seems far more like a victim than a villain, as he explains to the family that he was traumatized as a child by seeing his own mother having an affair with Jackie Gleason, which then caused Patrick to be sent to the asylum after he was asking too many questions.
Jackie Gleason?
Beat it, kid, your mother's busy. Hamina, pow! Right in the kisser!
Although, as the Griffins would soon find out, Patrick's trauma went a lot deeper, as after being re-triggered by Peter dressing up as Jackie Gleason, well, then Patrick goes on an all-out killing spree, strangling any fat person that he can get his hands on.
That doesn't mean he's the fat guy strangler.
Oh yeah? What about the dead fat guy under his bed?
Coincidence?
What about the half-dead fat guy in the corner?
Patrick tried to kill me.
However, thankfully Lois is then able to use Patrick's own insanity against him, which she does by threatening to kill his imaginary wife, and of course in the process, saving her very real husband.
Patrick, let him go, or Marion gets it.
Nice try, but Marion's over there. Don't hurt her!
Although, this isn't the last time that we'd see Patrick, as he's then let out of the asylum years later in Season 10 in order to help solve a string of murders that have been happening to the fat kids all around Quahog.
Oh, the murderer won't leave the camp.
What? What are you talking about?
He's feeding. He killed twice and he's gonna do it again. He's got plenty of places to hide out there and a fully stocked corral of victims.
How do you know that?
Trust me, I know.
And to his credit, Patrick then swaps being a villain for being a hero perfectly, as from his own experience of strangling fat people, he's then able to deduce that it was competitive eater Yamamoto that had been trying to kill Chris simply for beating him in a hot dog eating competition.
You said the first victim was wearing a baseball cap. The second one is blonde. The killer wasn't trying to murder this kid. He was trying to murder Chris.
However, at the end of this episode, Patrick is then able to escape from the asylum, with this leaving the door wide open for a potential return for Patrick, which honestly I would love to see, as Patrick is actually voiced by Robert Downey Jr. And so, before we get onto our final Family Guy villain, here are a few honorable mentions, starting off with the evil monkey, who for the first 8 seasons of the show, lived inside of Chris's closet and took every chance he could to make his life a living hell.
I want to go, Dad. It'll get me away from the evil monkey that lives in my closet.
Monkey in a closet.
However, in Season 8's Hannah Banana, we find out that the evil monkey actually moved out of his own home because his wife cheated on him. And, well, he was just a bit down on his luck.
You know, the sad part is, he wasn't always evil.
Honey, good news! I made partner!
And so, after the Griffins are able to help him back to his feet, the evil monkey, now just named Monkey, decides to finally move out of Chris's closet, and so decides that he will now live in Jake Tucker's closet instead. Which of course means that we will never again see the evil monkey as a villain in Family Guy. And our second honorable mention is Franz Schlicknot, who for years during the Second World War tortured Herbert as well as many others in his concentration camp.
If you pointed to the left, you did hard labor. If you pointed to the right, you died. That man was Franz Schlicknot.
However, in Season 9's German guy, Herbert is finally able to get revenge on his former captor, as after Franz kidnaps Peter and Chris, Herbert then comes to the rescue by throwing on his old US Army uniform and challenging Franz to a duel to the death, with this being a duel that Herbert ultimately wins.
Say goodnight, you Nazi bastard.
And of course, this thankfully means that Franz Schlicknot can never terrorize Quahog again. And so, our final Family Guy villain is none other than Evil Stewie, who we see in the Season 9 episode The Hand That Rocks the Wheelchair, after Stewie realizes that he's lost his spark and gone soft.
Alright, I think we're all set here.
Wow, never seen that happen before.
And in an effort to combat this, Stewie then sets up a device which will allow him to tap into the evil energy that he carried with him in the opening seasons of Family Guy. Although boy, this ends up going horribly wrong, as this device malfunctions, leaving Stewie exactly the same, and creating a new Stewie which is entirely made up of his evil parts, which Brian then unfortunately gets to find out firsthand.
Ah!
And so, with evil Stewie on the loose, he then sets his sights on greater targets, with my personal favorite of these being the hilarious callback to the Kool-Aid guy, who would make frequent appearances in the earlier seasons.
Oh no! Oh no! Oh no!
Oh yeah!
However, as fun as this gag is, the real Stewie knows that he has to put an end to his evil other half, which he attempts to do by tying Brian up by a rope and baiting the evil Stewie out into a fight. Which, I mean, of course, because this is evil Stewie, this works immediately.
I've had enough. I can't live with that stupid family anymore. Do me a favor and end it all for me, will you?
Delighted to oblige, Brian.
And after a brilliant back and forth fight, both Stewies have stripped off of their layers and are virtually identical, which then causes Brian to have to decide which Stewie is telling the truth about not being the evil Stewie.
Oh, come on, not this thing, really?
Brian, it's me, Stewie. Shoot him! No, Brian, you know me. Look at me! Shoot him!
However, by far the most interesting part about this episode is that it's completely left up in the air as to whether Brian actually killed the right Stewie, or if he let the evil Stewie simply manipulate him.
And I'm really glad I didn't kill the wrong Stewie.
Yeah, me too. Well, come on, I'll take you home.
Although, given the fact that Stewie's evil antics have died down since this point, it's unlikely that we'll ever see evil Stewie in Family Guy again. And so, this is what happened to every villain in Family Guy. And let me know in the comments, who do you think is the most evil?